So, Deepika, unmute.
Hello and welcome all. It is so gratifying to have a look around and see you all today. It's my pleasure to extend a very warm welcome to all the audience and a very star-studded panel for you. Allow me to welcome Dr. Vinaysheel Gautam, a legend in the field of management. Dr. Vinaysheel Gautam is best known for his institution-building outcomes and thought contributions in his multiple academic, administrative, and consulting roles. He has first-hand work experience in academia, government, and corporates, consulting world, and NGOs. Dr. Vinaysheel Gautam, a very warm welcome to you. I take this opportunity now to welcome Professor Kalro. Professor Kalro is Professor Emeritus at Ahmedabad University and academic advisor, Ahmedabad Education Society, and he also happens to be our second director. Professor Kalro, a very warm welcome to you. Professor Krishna Kumar, I welcome to you, sir. Professor Krishna Kumar is our third director, and he is one of the founding directors of IIMK, who has been very instrumental in the infrastructural development of the campus. A man who needs no introduction, the legend himself, and our beloved professor, Director Debashish. Professor Debashish Chatterjee, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
Now I take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the structure of the program and what we are going to achieve out of it. As we embark on a journey to celebrate a milestone, congratulations to everyone for stepping into this 25th year of celebration for our Foundation Day. In these years, IIMK has really risen through heights, becoming a diverse campus, and it has taken the Indian thought to global status. We, as the Alumni Association, are proud to be an organization of 8,000 plus alumni and have inculcated the values of these values in our DNA. Today, as we set off for the year-long celebrations as a countdown to IIMK's 25th anniversary, we have with us all you directors and our ex-directors for this enlightening conversation. We will have a question and answer session format for 10 minutes to each of you to speak about certain questions which I'm going to ask you during this discussion. I also want to start this on a slightly sweet note. Today, we take this opportunity to confer a distinguished alumni status to all our ex-directors. Of course, it would have been a lot of fun and it would have been a lot of celebration around this event if we could have done it physically. But this is just our token of appreciation and love to you that we are extending this slight small gesture to extend you all with the distinguished alumni status. This will definitely follow a ceremony which is going to come in future. Professor Debashish.
Well, I would very briefly, on behalf of the quartet of directors and on my own behalf, Deepika and Sanchit and the very distinguished alumni of IIM Kozhikode dispersed all over the world for formally conferring the distinguished alumni. Not that they need this, but we need it as much. And so if you leave me out, then I think all of the three veterans richly deserve to be honored thus for bringing the 25 glorious years of IIMK's journey to fruition. I would assume that all directors, and you would know that all directors have been very distinguished academics in their own rights. They have been gurus in their own fields of specialization. And a particular sort of Guru Darshana, and see, I had the privilege of conceptualizing Arjuna, which is now turned out to be the most visible and uh, iconic feature of our campus. Now, Arjuna represents a synthesis of the head and the heart, of deep focus, a fearless heart, and flawless execution. Now, without a Drona, there is no Arjuna. Without a Krishna, there is no Arjuna. Without an Aristotle, there is no Alexander. Without a Chanakya, there is no Chandragupta. Because the reflective and the active complement each other and they make each other possible. So, to all of you, I express my heartfelt gratitude for honoring these pioneers of IMK's first 25 years of existence. And I wish that the Almighty bless you. Thank you. On behalf of all of us, I express my deep gratitude to Jagannath for the splendid work.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for all those kind words. I must tell you that these were amazing 25 years for the institution. We have seen four very prominent phases in the life and journey of IMK. The stage or the phase of emotional infrastructural growth, and Professor Vinayshil Gautam, I invite you now to talk about the first phase of IMK, and I have certain questions for you, sir. You have been the founding director. You are the founding director of the campus, and you have seen this journey of IMK all the long way. So, what are your happiest memories of the campus, and what are the nature of challenges which you have faced, and how have you overcome those challenges in this journey?
I think, Deepika, you have been generous, but what you posed to me is a mouthful, and I know there are others coming. So allow me to meander and stream around the questions which you are in mind. And maybe after I have done my little bit in explaining how it worked together, at the end of my remarks, if you have any other questions, we can handle it. I go back to 1993. The IIT system had got its first non-statutory things out of its way, and the first non-science and non-engineering department had been created in a statutory mode, and that was the Department of Management Studies. When I demitted office as the head of the Department of Management in IIT Delhi, I had already earned a reputation of rushing in where the angels fear to tread, because nobody could think of IITs having any statutory place for any non-engineering or science situation. That was the context in which I was asked to serve as the chief consultant for IIM Kozhikode, and the reason why I flagged it was we had already two committee reports which said that there could not be an IIM in Calicut, let alone Kerala, because if there was to be a management institution in Kerala, it had to be focused in health matters. This was a particularly significant report because it was chaired by one of the former directors of a nearby IIM in South India. So to begin with, I had a prejudice to contend with. The rest is history. All I would say is that we set to work, and in my team, I was very fortunate to get Dr. N.C.B. Nath, whom you will recall was from Hindustan Levers and had been a colleague of Vikram Sarabhai and had a huge role to play in the developing of IIM Ahmedabad. And he laid down a condition which he said it would be easy to run another IIM in the photocopy mode of IIM Ahmedabad, but that would not really serve a purpose because that would be creating another IIM in duplication. Let us find out a role space for IIM at Kozhikode, and that was where we started. I have not the space or the time to get into this kind of a narrative step by step, but I think two things happened through the detailed project reports, which we went through in successive iterations and found that they had wide degree of acceptability both amongst the academics, the industry people, and above all the local population. The DPR was particularly lucky in finding two individuals, outstanding professionals in their own right, to give the structure physical and the structure academic to this institution, which was going to be the fifth Indian Institute of Management. Because mind you, IIM Kozhikode was moving away a step from the conventional concept of an IIM, where it had to be embedded in an industrial ethos. And therefore, we called it the second generation IIM. The first lucky process which met the entire unfolding of the dream was coming in of Mr. Stein as the architect, who said, look, it's your idea. I will convert it into an architectural reality, but you tell me how you want it done. And you can now see what happened in the two hillocks where the IIM campus is now lodged. The second was the fortuitous coming in of Dr. Debashish Chatterjee, who picked up the concepts as they were enshrined in the logo, in the bywords, the ethos of the detailed project report, and I'll have something to say of it at a later date. But it was not before the other directors had laid the groundwork for it and prepared for getting into the niceties, because you couldn't have an institute without building the buildings, without creating the ethos of proper admissions, proper research. And I think I was very fortunate again in having very competent successors who took this mission forward. I would like to mention two things about the way IIMK is today. It is a large measure of a visualization of what you see in the logo. There is the stretched string of an arrow, which is a straight derivation of Khand 2, Mantra 4 of Mundokya Upanishad, which says that if the pratyancha is drawn and the tarkash has given the tir to the bow anyhow, then you cannot be far from achieving the goal. Now, that is an ethos which, without borrowing in any real sense, I now see as the logo which the IIM Alumni Association also carries, the same pratyancha, the same determination to get to the logo. I find it particularly useful to mention the kind of role which Dr. Debashish Chatterjee played in picking up the threads of globalizing Indian thought, because the initial concept of IIMK was not more of the same. It was a second generation IIM, and to that extent, we did three things. One, besides doing the regular PGP, we carried management education to the doorsteps of the learner, which is how we used technology. And please go back to the logo again. You will find that the logo is embedded in a two-third wheel. The two-third wheel has 12 teeth to it. Therefore, IIMK was conceived as a multidisciplinary institution long ago, and that is what was rolled out by different directors. Either they were working through the campus development, developing the curriculum, or taking the Indian thought globally. It is not surprising, therefore, that the IIM research, curriculum, and the products, which is the alumni, symbolize this kind of synthesis. And it is soulful to note that the road to this was defined as Satyam, Nityam, Purnam. Satyam means truth, Nityam means sustainability, and Purnam means wholesomeness. Now, these words were not coined by me. These were coined by the IIM faculty under the leadership of Dr. Debashish Chatterjee through the continuous iterative processes that IIMs work for. And that, I think, is the real distinctive feature of IIMK. The road to it is through the Arjun Path. And as we position ourselves today, we look to the future and we find it necessary that these seminal times, times past and times present, we have a whole world unfolding before us, which is being recast in a new mold, not only in terms of content. For example, if you take financial management, management of credit is no longer as important as management of debt. And I could elaborate upon these themes, but the content of postgraduate management education is undergoing a change. The delivery through online systems being hybrid with classroom systems is undergoing a change. And IIMK, I think, has got a very important role in this, because with its emphasis on multimodality, multiple disciplinary inputs to the making of a practitioner, is poised to stay in the lead. The path is not going to be without challenges, because as in the past, where you have more than two people, there are bound to be differences of opinion, there are bound to be conflicts of interest, there are bound to be jostlings of power. And these were the challenges which I had to face, and other directors also had to face also. This is inherent in the position of leadership. But I think IIMK has been very fortunate to have a series of leaders who have always stood up for the cause rather than the person. And in that process, I think the road forward is going to be perhaps creating a university which will symbolize the logical fruition of all that we have done so far. You wanted me to highlight two of my happy moments in Kozhikode. There were so many that memories vie with each other, and I don't know which ones to pick from, but I will narrate two for the sake of brevity. First is the first time in late 1997 that the first student arrived to be admitted formally into the PGP process. That was the formal beginning. Imagine 42 of them coming out into an institution which had no track record, perhaps save the goodwill of its concepts, its people, its faculty, its infrastructure, to be and say, we are going to commit ourselves to this institution. And that really made me happy. The second occasion when I was equally delighted, and that is still remembered by many in the Calicut town, was when the architectural plan was converted into a reality by the architect, and it was endorsed by the competent bodies, and we had a party the likes of which is still to be remembered. There are so many details which one can talk about, but I think the idea is to recognize that in the present times, you can't have a robust future without being rooted in the context and in the soil where it is supposed to operate. And that's where globalization of Indian thought is such an appropriate theme. Perhaps the character of the institution will gradually metamorphose into a university, but you, the alumni, are not only precious, but are the ultimate products of what we were able to do with all through our efforts. And over 2 decades, the focus of management education has changed, but the fundamentals remain the same. It continues to be the making of a practitioner who must have sound judgment and acute self-awareness and reality perception. Perhaps the answer to this lies in temperamental equanimity, which in Indian ethos, I will be reminded, is called sthit pragyata. And I must confess, that's a word I cannot possibly translate into English. The closest equivalent I can find is equanimity. I hope this responds partially to some of the questions which you had. We'll pick it up at another point of time when we have a little more time to say things in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. What beautiful words, sir, and what a beautiful memory to have. I'm pretty sure when the first student would have walked in, that would have been a moment of joy and pride and a very promising future. Thank you very much for your thoughts. I am going to move my focus to a man who has actually conceptualized and concretized these plans and was the person to build up the initial infrastructure of the institution, Professor Kalro. My question to you, sir: under your leadership, the campus has gone through an era of development and concretized the idea of IIMK. How has been your journey, sir? The same question to you, probably. What were your happiest moments, and what were certain challenges which you have faced in this journey? Over to you, sir. Sir, you are on mute.
Mute. Hello, can you hear me now?
I think you're fine. Mr. Kalru, go ahead, but you have to unmute your mic. Right now it is on mute. You have to unmute your mic. It is on mute right now.
Sir, Professor Calro, you are on mute right now. Please, you'll have to unmute it once again. We can hear you
Is it
now.
okay now?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. At the outset, let me thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to recollect the thoughts that I would like to share with you about building an institution, because not many of us get an opportunity to create something and then sustain it for years to come. When I came to IIM Kozhikode from IIM Ahmedabad, where I had already spent almost 30 years of my academic career, I was basically alarmed and indeed worried for many reasons, which, without meaning ill about anybody, let me just narrate. The director had resigned. We had hardly any students. In fact, while we had crossed the number of 40 in the first batch, we could not even touch 20 in the second. There were hardly any faculty members that we had at that point of time. We had practically no reasonable infrastructure in which we could launch a program that would stand the test of time. The ministry, which had actually created the institution, had forgotten to sanction positions and also allot money for the development of the institution. And I can go on and on and on. And the situation was so difficult that sometimes I used to wonder, where do I begin? And then I realized that we had some priorities which had to be addressed come what may. First and foremost was to build credibility. Second was to augment faculty resources. Third was to get posts and finances sanctioned by government, connect with stakeholders, and move on to developing our own unique, independent identity. It was, yes, meant to be a new generation IIM, but in generating this new IIM identity, we did not want to discard everything that had stood the test of time in the earlier institutions, but we wanted to add and create more as we went on. The little over 5 years that I spent at IIMK in pursuing these tasks indeed helped me personally to understand what it takes to establish an institution and enjoy seeing its growth as time went by, even after I left the institution. Let me, in fact, talk about some of the lessons that I learned as I went along during this period in trying to address the challenges that we faced. There were many, and I don't think this is an opportunity for me to describe one by one the serial order of these challenges and how they were resolved. But there were some very important lessons that I could learn during this period and which helped me contribute to the creation of an institution which IIMK has now further added to and developed the way it has. First and foremost was to recognize that change is certain. So we all have to learn to adapt and evolve. Secondly, It was the realization that while autonomy is important and everybody wants it, it turns out to be counterproductive unless it is accompanied by accountability. Thirdly, that it is imperative that as we go along, we always review and regenerate, which means we go through a process of learning, unlearning, and then relearning. Fourthly, being in a state which is so socially conscious, like Kerala, it was easy to understand that we must treat people with dignity, be egalitarian as we move along, and while rationality must provide space for compassion in all our decision making. Social consciousness and our heritage is good and important, but so is organizational citizenship, which is essential for growth and development. I also learned, as as Vinayshil also mentioned and referred to, there are bound to be differences of opinion when few learned people or educated people interact on various issues. So I learned very early that it is extremely important to invite constructive criticism, engage in dialogue with stakeholders. We cannot disconnect just because our views are different, because we have a different choice to make. And evolving something which is acceptable to all assumes a great deal of importance. We had no money, we were not getting money, we had no position sanctioned. So it also taught us to learn about the benefits of frugal management and avoid ostentation. I must share with you that repeatedly when I went to the MHRD, I was always told that look, you have to have a ratio between faculty and non-faculty expenditure, between number of faculty and non-faculty staff, which had never been achieved in any MHRD sponsored institution or created institution. But I said, I accept your challenge. But if I fail, then you will understand that it was not for want of trying. But I'm happy to tell you, one of my happiest moments always was when we could go back to the government of India and the ministry and show to them that we had indeed met their prescription on these ratios that they had defined for us. Also, I realized that it was very important to find opportunities to contribute to the community, society, and the nation. And by the way, few important initiatives that emerged from IIMK during those years have always left me feeling very happy. One was the creation of the Center for Excellence, which we incubated, which was going to cater to the development of the disadvantaged and the scheduled communities of Kerala. And the second, by the way, was essentially to launch satellite broadcast education programs which took management education to different corners of the country. We were the first IIM to do it, and it took a big battle at the government level to ultimately get consent to go through that program. By the way, this is another program which has now been imitated by every IIM amongst the older ones, and the newer ones are also looking forward to doing this. And last but not least, I would like to mention that it is very important that we develop an organization culture which will stand the test of time and which we will always zealously guard. These were some of my important learnings which I used to drive my work at the IMK and creating the foundation of an institution which we would all be justifiably proud of as years went by, and which indeed the subsequent directors have done so, and so have the boards of these institutions and the officials of the government and policymakers who have contributed significantly to its development. Now, let me also spend a few minutes, if I have them, to talk about what do I see as the future course for the IIMK. Now, when you build a strong foundation and everybody who is in a leadership position in that institution contributes to its strengthening and giving some traction to the vision of the institution, we are very sure that we will be able to achieve our purpose provided we do it with a single minded focus. And to us, it has always been possible. But there are now problems that we need to contend with. As you're all aware, the best management institutions in this country are standalone institutions, be they IIMs or others. They are not necessarily part of a larger university system. But now we have coming on the horizon new thinking on what higher education should be in the new education policy that has been prescribed for 2020 onwards. So we need to look at management education as much more multidisciplinary than what it is. And we will have to once again recreate the experiences that we went through in building a competent base of professionals from the field of management. But now it will have to be from all other related disciplines as well, so that it emerges as a true university. Secondly, we at IIMG already have significant experience in online education, both in real time and non real time. And with the COVID crisis that we have been going through, we now recognize and realize that while we will overcome the problem of COVID in due time, but the changes that have come in the manner in which education is being delivered and is going to be delivered is there to stay. So a significant part of our education will have to be in future online. But this is a tremendous opportunity for an institution like IIMK, which is not only trying to globalize Indian thought, but which will also be able to bring in thought from anywhere in the world right into our campus and educate our managers and our students and our potential leaders. So we need to work on this in a significant way, and this will further help us in improving access, in improving the cost that we incur in education. It helps us bring it down. And indeed, it will help us in creating a true global community that we want to look at. We don't only want to globalize Indian thought, we also want to globalize the management community that is engaged in taking the management movement forward the world over. I,
What a beautiful thought, sir.
I wish
What,
to congratulate all who have contributed to this effort, continue to do so, and wish them more and more success in their endeavors. Because, nothing makes a person happier than to see a child grow into adulthood, grow into a mature adult, and grow into a mature adult who contributes to the building of the society and the nation at large. So Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much, sir. Thank you very much, and such a beautiful thought. And congratulations to you for being a very, very important part of our journey and being there for us when the whole community needed you. It was just the initial phases of IMK where your contributions cannot be, we cannot thank you enough for the great, support and help and the challenges which you have described and overcoming all those challenges. And to see what we have today is such a joy. Thank you very much, sir, for all your contributions and beautiful words. Professor Krishna Kumar,
In
I'm
this
going to
context,
ask.
let me also mention. In this context, let me also mention one more thing. I mentioned it earlier. The alumni are the ambassadors and the torchbearers of the institution and what it stands for. So expectations will keep on increasing from you as time goes by. And in this endeavor, my very best to you, and may God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. Such
Thank
a
you.
strong and beautiful message to all the alumni out there, and I'm pretty sure that we would never, never let you down. Thank you for your kind words once again, Professor Krishna Kumar. My focus is on you, sir. You have been instrumental in the infrastructural development and growth of IIMK. You have been very well focused on development on ground. So, what have been your challenges and what were been your moments of happinesses in this journey? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be with you all. Uh, it's a very, very interesting uh, experience that I had following the footsteps of my teacher and having a colleague as my successor. One very interesting thing that you might have noticed, the institute is building from strength to strength. There is no um, gap, and everything is so harmonious that even if four directors have been there, even if several buildings are there, they look fully integrated, which you don't find easily in other institutions. Uh, my time, and I must salute both Professor Vinashil Gautam and Professor Carlo for the courage they had. I repeat, the courage they had to look at those two hills, which were not the very wanted site for the people who gave it to us. And today they repent that why they gave this hills to us. It's one of the most picturesque campus. When I went there, groundwork had been done by Professor Vinashil Gautam and Professor Carlo. I reached at a stage when the institute was in uh, what you call 5 to 10 years age, and the changes were taking place, some uh, expected, some unexpected. The institution has been established, the placement, the admission, everything was streamlined, and the expectations of the people were increasing. First day itself, you see a flag, protest for promotion and also pension, which government of India had stopped. It's so unfortunate that right at that time there was a standoff between IIMs and government of India on PGP fee issue. So while we were banking heavily on government grants, the government said you reduce the fee from 1 lakh to 30,000. And how to do it? They said we'll give you money, but IIMs were not agreeing. And what others experience, I don't know. But in IMK, Professor Kalu had told me that from 2003 April to February 2004, government had not released a penny for plan and non-plan grant. So I was going to be the first director who could not have drawn his first month's salary. And I met the ministry people my chairman met the Honorable Minister, and I told them, if you don't give me the letter that you are releasing money, I won't proceed to Calicut and go back to Lucknow. Nicely, the head of department agreed, and by the time I reached Calicut, within a week, I had sanctioned letter, and the money came. Otherwise, it would have been difficult. Second thing was, right then, the prices of construction material and were skyrocketing. And the builder had taken a contract which was below the cost estimated on CPWD rate. So it was making loss from day one. And it had reached the stage that they were not able to expedite construction, and the buildings had come to a progress of 1.6% per month instead of 6% per month, which was required to meet the PGP intake of 120. So students were admitted. They were in first year and they were joining in June in second year. And the classroom complex was not ready. And the hostels were also not complete. And we had a stopgap arrangement, classrooms in the library. I didn't know because the amount involved was my full 5 years salary, which was going to be a waste after 6 months or a year when the classroom complex was ready. So, two things, staff and faculty, and without physical infrastructure, how do you move? And that is, my dear friends, is the best lesson I have. I had come at a stage when the institute needed growth to sustain. You simply cannot be at a height of 3 feet when you are 15 years of age. And therefore, if we were not able to manage growth, there would be serious problem, and we would have been second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th IIM. Luckily, the management education came to my rescue, and we were able to sustain that growth. PGP intake, which was already 120, went to 180. When the first batch of 120 students were passing out, the first batch of 180 students were coming. And 3 years later, the intake was further increased to 260. And when Prasad Devashish joined that year, the intake reached 300. And I don't see any other institute in the country or elsewhere which has grown in terms of PGP intake from 60 to 300 in 7 years' time. At the same time, I also had a very interesting thing that how to grow if you don't have resources. You don't have money, you don't have manpower, you don't have physical infrastructure. Is it possible to grow? And Deepika and my senior colleagues and Prasad Devashish, I learned it is possible. Indeed, if you don't have resources, you may grow faster at times. If there are threats, there is always the opportunity hidden. All my concepts that I learned at Ahmedabad and which I had taught in IIM Lucknow went haywire, and the concepts in the same way modified. Threats are not threats. If you are able to properly see at it, there is always a hidden opportunity. So when OBC quota was introduced through Act of Parliament and nobody could refuse, instead of shying away in the pretext of no land, we increased the intake by 85% in the first year itself. And by second year, when Prasad Devashish came, we surpassed the OBC quota by 10%, because if you want to grow, then despite reservation, you can increase the general seats. And that is what Prasad Devashish team had done. Another thing which I found was,
no, I hate to intervene and time keep here. I really hate to intervene you on this one, but we have a very strict timeline for the session today, And if time permits, I would definitely, circle back on you
Thank
to,
you.
have your words from here. Thank you very much for sharing with us your challenges and of course the opportunities in the challenges. And thank you very much for letting us know that how the institution saw a stark rise in the intake of the students. And I'm building in my mind. I'm building this beautiful narrative from the first student stepping inside the campus to where the strength in number grows. Actually, if it was a movie and if it has to be on a timeline, it would actually beautifully come out. And that's what the entire institution is for. Thank you very much for your thoughts. And if time permits, I'm going to circle back on you, sir. And now, all our eyes on Professor Devashish Chatterjee, our favorite professor and director. So we have seen a great positioning of IMK, and what I see is the development of the social infrastructure. This is the time when we have positioned IMK as one of the finest management institute, not even in India, in the whole world. So back to you, your views and your vision on making IMK and positioning us with the theme of globalizing the Indian thoughts. So we would want to hear you. Over to you, sir.
Okay, Deepika, before you hear me, I would like to give 1 minute of my time to Professor Krishna Kumar to finish what he was trying to say. I think he should finish this, and then I'll take over.
Oh, sure. My apologies.
Sir, please, you have to finish what you're saying. It doesn't look proper. You have to please go ahead. Please go ahead.
All that you have done, and I'll be very keen to hear from you the present state, because I'm a little off from the current status of IMK.
We appreciate your generosity. Can we go back? Yes, thanks. So, you see, I joined IMK in 2009, and Professor Krishna Kumar generously agreed to pay my airfare from Singapore to campus, which is very rare in a government institution. I came for the interview just for the fun of it, because I had no intention whatsoever to leave my comfort zones in Singapore. And I was although it was a small school, I was dean of, my family was pretty well entrenched, and the city was very progressive. And so, but then when I came to IMK, I realized that it was a shoe size, a couple of sizes bigger than what I was used to wearing. So you can imagine somebody in his 40s, early 40s, given a pair of shoes that he's not used to wearing. It was difficult for me to adjust to the enormity of the scope and the scale of opportunity that one saw. So before I was interested with this role, I was the dean of a small school in Singapore, as I said, where I saw the amalgamation of the Western, Indian, and Chinese cultures. And I realized that culture was different from civilization. Civilization was about what you have by way of artifacts, wealth, resources, and culture was about what you are. And I thought it was possible to look at globalization of an institution without westernization, both globalization and modernization of institution, without a westernization. Singapore was one great learning, because we saw the synthesis of what you would call the Chinese, the Western American, British models, and the Indians there. Whereas the Western model was very objective, and one could learn from there. The Chinese were very pragmatic, one could learn from there, but Indians were very creative. And we thought it would be possible to look at globalization going forward creatively. So if you look at the Western world with 1/10 of its population, globalization is almost synonymous. Professor Kallu and I would probably have differences of opinion here, but then I respect his point of view. The westernized version of globalization, with just 1/10 of the global population, is an unfair proposition. And I said it is possible that with 1 out of 5 person in the world in 2047, when IIM Kozhikode becomes 50 years old as an institution and an independent India is 100 years old, it will be unfair for us to live the globalization business to 1/10 of population, whereas 1/5 of India. not bereft of ideas, we could globalize some of the best ideas of the country, and this institution was rightly poised for it. So we had this vision called 2047, and not that I elaborately shared this vision with a large community of faculty, but in small pockets we started discussions, and we realized that it is possible to look at 2047 as an inflection point for what we should stop doing. I think the emphasis was essentially to reflect and say what would not be relevant in 2047. The linearity of our curriculum, the mechanistic nature of what Western models were throwing at us, were something that we were not comfortable embracing in the Indian context, in the context of Kerala that I was in. So we started a few interesting things. One was the Indian Business Museum, where we created a narrative of things. I wrote to 100 CEOs, the best known names in India, to contribute to the museum. And virtually, without too much of a fuss, we gathered a lot of things, which made the museum an interesting place, a hub to understand how India could contribute to the world of commerce and trade and all of that. So the museum was the first real contribution. And then what we did is we looked into the shift in the culture of the campus from just looking at a school that was stuck in a mold in a little state in Kerala. And during my term, we started the first global accreditation. We started with AMBA, and we are hoping that by the time I'm gone, we'll have EQUIS and ASSB. We'll have our Triple Crown. We are already in the global space for our APGB program, the seeds of which were planted in 2001. As Professor Kalro said, we went digital. And then as a result of this, the consequence of this has been that we are now a globally accredited and globally ranked institution. We are in the top 15 plus category alongside ISB, Hyderabad, and 100 plus globally. Our PGB program is going up now again for QS rankings, and I can assure you that in a year's time or 2 years' time, you will see IIM Kozhikode routinely featured in the global map, in the education map of universities and institutions alike. The whole linearity of a standalone management school was broken long back when I started the first area called Liberal Arts and Humanities. And we got a very bright student from Oxford, which Professor Carlo's institute poached away from us. He joined. And then we had somebody from Shantiniketan, and we had a modicum of a nucleus of a group that started what today is the first ever liberal arts, liberal education MBA in the country. So we have 4 PGPs now, as opposed to 1. We had 1 PGP for 24 years, and 25th year we see ourselves graduating 4 PGPs. We have a PhD for preachers, PhD for practitioners, so practice track PhD. And you see, we have also got our design principles in place. And so we have a fundamental clarity now about gender diversity. We were the first IIM to look at consistently, looking at 50-odd%. Now, the national average has grown significantly. All IIMs have to buy willy-nilly what we did in 2012. Today, every IIM has to follow that trend. So we were trendsetters in that. Professor Kalro, before that, Professor Vinaychal Gautam has talked about my articulation of what are called design principles, Satyam, Nityam, and Purnam. And so what we did is we essentially tried and created conversations in small pockets. See, they have a chance to be institutionalized and internalized. And I think as we go towards 2047, which is our benchmark here, I realize like the pages of a calendar is turned as the years go by, as leaves fall away, yielding place to new leaves, and the tree becomes greener again. Some things do not really change. And that thing is that the internal resolve, the extraordinariness that is include into our own identity as an institution. And for the alumni, I have just this to say, that everything is within your power, but your real power is within you. On that note, I would like this to be open to conversations if you have time for it. If not, thank you for such a great initiative. And I thank my predecessors for lending their very precious time, energy, and their voices for the growth of a great institution, an institution in the making. The future looks so bright, so dazzlingly bright, it blinds my eyes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
I'd like to come in very briefly to make reference to one aspect of our working which has a great source of strength, which perhaps because of time we couldn't pay attention to in sufficient measure. The quality which we have brought upon extension education, continuous learning processes, and making sure learning renewal is a way of life for all management learners. And I think IIM Kozhikode's record there is exceptionally emulating. I think I would like to place that on record very briefly.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. So I just want to thank you all for sharing your views. And instead, I would not even call them views. They're pure emotions for the institution, pure emotions for the entire fraternity and the family. And I'm so glad that we could have you all today for this brief conversation. This next year, what the volunteer organization of IIMK Alumni Association is going to run various activities, various engagements, and various programs in terms of certain certain topic-specific webinars, topic-specific Zoom meetings, and topic-specific discussions. More than that, we are also looking at reconvening in the campus by the next year. And I hope and wish and pray that the COVID threat is over by that time, so that we all can have you in person on campus, and we can have our moment of glory in pure celebratory terms. I see that Professor Debashish has been meaning to say something, and I'll invite you, sir, for.
No. See, the last word should belong to the alumni and the students. They have the last word. They are the ones who define what we are. Directors only do some kind of a job of nudging things around, pushing things a little bit. But I think students finally decide where the institutions are going to be, and you have the last word. So I leave that to you, Deepika.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It's been a great year for the entire alumni organization and the family of 8,000 plus. I would not really call it alumni organization. It's been a very, very great year of engagement. In blessing in disguise is initially we used to do only 2 events, which were the physical meetups on campus, but now we are doing many, many more virtual meetups. And we are reorganizing, reconnecting with each other on issues which matter, the areas of interest which really allures us. And there are many possibilities which we are exploring together as the alumni organization. And actually, the entire credit goes to this beautiful organization of people, all volunteer-led, who's coming together and building something beautiful in the way. That's my last note.
On behalf of Professor Vinayakshil Gautam, I'll not allow him to speak because he's too good a speaker. So I'll just summarize a little cartoon that he sent me. He said that which of these two were more important, the goal or the journey? And then there's a character who says, well, it was neither, it was actually the company that we kept. And I think for the great directors of the institution, thank you for keeping us such great company and for being with us even today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for joining us today. And I'm closing this session with a vote of thanks from the entire alumni organization. Thank you, Professor Debashish Chatterjee, for giving us time and allowing the space to, have this conversation and, getting everyone together on one panel. Thank you very much. And my apologies, Professor Krishna Kumar. I interrupted you in between, and I didn't get an opportunity to circle back on you, sir. But I'm pretty sure, and my promise to you that we will have you exclusively for one of the events, so that you can share your experiences and journey about the infrastructural development of the campus. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.